European Heritage Days are a celebration of heritage.
All the heritage is for everybody, for young, old, poor, rich, everybody.
European Heritage Days event can be guided tour, but it can also be theatre, it can also be a concert.
It's about equality, it's about sharing, it's about remembering, it's about figuring out what we will do in the future together.
European Heritage Days take place every September all over Europe. European citizens in 50 countries get free access to thousands of rarely open sites and unique events. European Heritage Days are the most widely celebrated participatory cultural event shared by people in Europe. Every October, national representatives gather in Strasbourg to present local success stories, plan the year ahead, and share the most memorable experiences.
It is difficult to choose just one. Imagine that we have 70,000 events every single year, and imagine that we have 30 million visitors, and I've been working for the European Heritage Days for 7 years. So it is a lot of memorable European Heritage Days experiences. We had one of the most memorable I can think of. It was the first annual porridge making competition in Norway. That was something very specific. We had a flash mob in Armenia. We had heritage education activities with a cultural bazaar in Slovenia. We had involvement of children in Yerevan in an online museum. So there are many different scopes that I can go with this, but I would say my most memorable European Heritage Days experience is working with the European Heritage Coordinator and local communities.
I think the most memorable experience is when my colleagues were telling me about what they've developed, and these are the colleagues from southern Bohemia, from the České Budějovice. I think for the international public it's more known as Budweiser, the time where the beer is produced, the very famous one. And they developed a program for schools. This is kind of discovery visits of the town center, which is thematic for the time periods in art history. So you can follow the Baroque buildings or the statues in the town, or you go to find out some Gothic things which are in the town. And this was one of the first very, I think, very good program to make a cooperation between National Heritage Institute, the professionals or the experts, and the school children.
My most memorable so far would be this year, as we had the cooperation with a project called Let's Eat Together. In Finland, we tend to eat not alone, like not so much with our families or our colleagues. So we had a really big project with that, and then we made our own little event on it so that you could eat together in a cultural environment during the EHDs.
European Heritage Day's aim is to raise the awareness of Europe's cultural richness and diversity. Every year, one common theme is assigned, but each participating country can also choose the specific theme for their respective local events.
European Heritage Days are a celebration of heritage. This celebration reminds us that of our common cultural background, but also tell us in a very important way that the culture can be used to enhance the value of communities. For us, culture is not something that's top-down, that would come from ministers of culture. Some of our governments do not even have ministers of culture. For us, culture is something that has to be embedded in the people's mind. When you see a community that would come together around a cultural heritage project, you see this living Europe bringing, enhancing this cultural heritage, telling us that Europe is about that. It's about history, it's about the future, it's about, new times in which will be peaceful and good.
I'm a strong believer that it's the people who decide what is heritage and what not so much. So if we're talking about cultural heritage or natural heritage, I know that there are a lot of experts the experts have their own opinions, but in the end I think it's the people who decide, and this is why we have to work with them. And again, this is why I think that the European Heritage Days is something very valuable, a very valuable tool to hear the people and also help them join the community of people who protect heritage.
I think that throughout the program people get the chance to visit museums and cultural properties that they didn't visit it before. It is a program that is inviting in a way and also allowing people to get to know their local community, but also local communities of other countries.
The Council of Europe and the European Commission encourage the selection of transnational themes. They can be illustrated by cross-border activities that are jointly set up by the different countries. The cultural events highlight local skills and traditions, architecture, and works of art. However, the broader aim is to bring citizens together in harmony, despite the differences in cultures and languages.
It's not only about learning about heritage, it's also learning about the common history and traditions, because European Heritage Days celebrations also involve intangible heritage. This sense, it's also uniting people together, and it's very exciting and motivating how through excursions, festivals, open lectures, people get together and interchange their ideas and share their common values.
The way of life we have, the way of eating, the way of traveling, the way of... This is everyday heritage, but I think that it's important that we just focus one day or a weekend or a week specifically on aspects, on dimensions of what has been the past, and what does this mean for our identity. We have a lasagne identity, so I'm a Flemish man, I'm a Belgian, I'm a European, I'm a world citizen. So, and I think this is worthwhile because this enriches each other. And that's the way heritage is helping us, let's say, bringing the values of the past, possibly, to, let's say, the richness of the future.
Europe needs a bit of passion, needs a bit of emotions, and we believe that cultural heritage brings those emotions in people. We don't believe it, we see it through testimonies, through what people tell us. That's really a way to feel connected to your local environment and also something bigger. If you take again, the local church or a building or the street names, you really see that Europe is everywhere in your daily life.
For me, very special is the fact that it's free of charge. So as you think about all those luxury monuments, they were built for the elite. But with the Heritage Day, all the heritage is for everybody. And for young, old, poor, rich, everybody. And it's millions of people are going to look at those monuments, and they are connecting with the heritage. And what I hope, well, that's what my experience in the Netherlands, that people are more aware of the importance of the heritage, and that they want to help protect them, because they should be responsible. And I think when we do this together with all those countries, it's more massa, it has more effect, and I'm very positive about that.
It's probably is all about identity. Who are we? Why are we who we are? And what connects us to other people? Like I said, I'm from Belgium. You probably know Belgium is a very complex country when it comes to identity and it comes to communities. That's quite important, and that's what people first have to know. Where do we come from, and what makes us who we are, but what makes us connect to the others. And I think that's the most important, just to start a connection, a debate, a feeling of togetherness.
When we do the activities, we take a group photo with the flag of the European Heritage Days, and people feel very happy about that because, for example, nowadays in Spain, flags can divide people, but in this case, they feel very happy about taking a photo with the flag. So it is important to feel the sense of taking part of a common European space. And we are happy about the fact that when we do an activity, there participate old people and young people, and it is funny to see the face of the children admiring old people telling their stories.
It was at Viskri. Viskri, it's a citadel. In fact, it's a fortified church in Transylvania, and there we make an inauguration. So what that corresponds with the feature of the European Heritage Days. That means this is the first time that it's open to the public a monument or something that before was not accessible, and now with this event was accessible. So it was very close to the aim of the Heritage Days.
I remember when I was myself on a place which was opened on the Heritage Day, and this was a protected monument, but it was in a very bad state. And I have heard for a long time that people in this town, they said, this building should be torn down, it's worth for nothing. And then we said, let's open it for the Heritage Day. And I found out, because I was there personally, and I prepared everything, and I put some candles and had some nice music, and I cleaned up a little, just a little swept out. And then the people, they came, and first they were really, I had the impression they were a little afraid, and they looked like here and there, and then they went out with a big smile, and they told me, I did not know that this is such a nice building. So this is a very remarkable remembrance for me for the Heritage Days.
We work a whole year through, and we work a lot with children. It's not just the Heritage Days itself, and I think when we work with children, that are the most memorable things. I think that is so wonderful. What we set up was to work with schools and the direct district, so where they live, so the children work not just with the big monuments, but with, the street where they live, the church or temple that they go to, or the mosque that they go to. And one of the things that I found really nice is that in class they were asked to bring an object that they would consider heritage. So they brought something that I really liked, and then they had to tell the story behind the objects, and that I found really sort of very nice entrance into what we were just talking to in the meaning about storytelling and about making heritage mean something that's very personal. And that is something that I thought was a really wonderful method to bring the children to what is heritage, because it's quite of an abstract kind of meaning.
European Heritage Days were officially launched in 1985 by the Council of Europe. The roots of the initiative date, however, all the way back to 1954, when the European Cultural Convention was signed.
Just a few years after the Council of Europe was born in 1949, as you know, we had the European Cultural Convention, and this was one of the main jobs of the Council of Europe, the recognition of this shared European culture and how we could use culture not to separate but to unite the people. Because in the end we have the nations, but the people have to come together, love each other, admire what others are doing. We share a common history. This common history has not always been peaceful, but what we want is that our future is certainly peaceful and built on these important values.
Another convention signed in Faro in 2005 defined the bottom-up approach, putting local communities in the center of defining cultural heritage.
The Faro Convention is quite an innovative convention. It's a framework convention, but beyond that, it has a very pragmatic approach to working with communities. The spirit of Faro Convention is primarily putting communities in the center of decision making. So the communities across Europe, pan-European setting, they can focus on, traditionally the classical way of seeing heritage has been the political figures and experts make decisions about the heritage assets. But when we look at today, the world, the management of assets, the local development processes are very important, and the role of communities are essential in that. So Faro Convention primarily promotes that the communities take the centerpiece of this decision making. By no means that excludes the local and national authorities and experts, but they are essential part of it, but the communities should not be excluded from the processes, and they should be in the centerpiece because that's ultimately where people live. It's important that the local communities are aware of what kind of assets they have, they value it, they're proud of it, and if they're involved in active management of these assets, of course it's an eternal protection model as far as the Faro Convention is concerned.
The most memorable European Heritage Days experience happened last year, when the common theme was heritage and communities, and we had presentation of methodology for blind persons in Croatia, in Zagreb, in Modern Gallery, and I was really impressed with that methodology and that idea then that blind persons can experience the art history, and now it's possible in Croatia and Zagreb.
This was when Cyprus had the presidency of the European Union, and we did the European Heritage Days assembly actually in Cyprus, and it was a great experience, especially for me, not only as a coordinator but also as a host, because this was done in my village, and I actually opened up my own house, and all the colleagues, coordinators from the other countries also were invited to my home, which is a monument of culture, and it was nice for me to share my heritage with all my fellow coordinators.
Something special in Finland is the Cultural Heritage Makers competition, and the first year it was a special day when we got all the competition materials posted to us. So we had them in a big table, drawings and artworks by children, so it was really a nice surprise that the first year we got 80 works, and it was really a success from the beginning. So.
Well, it was an interesting thing. I visited a small village in west part of Hungary, because there I've heard about a crazy man who tries to open the whole village. He organized a lot of strange programs and I really wanted to see this man. And when I arrived, I recognized that the whole village is moving from place to place, and though they have no monument, they have very nice memory of the history of this small town. And this man wants to remind the locals of their history, of their memories. Yeah, so that was really a funny event.
So far, the most memorable moment for me was going to a place called Park Hall, which is in the very north of England in Oswestry, and they had a whole World War II trench system that was set up in the town, and there was families who were there. There was people of different ages, people of different races, religions, and they were all interacting with these kind of reenactors who were there, which was incredible to see. And it was really great just to see how much Heritage Open Days brings people together, and how people who would never normally meet were talking and discussing things through Heritage Open Days.
All of us belong to Europe.
We share a common history.
Open borders, that's the European dimension.
Archaeological sites, of course, they do not end at the state borders. They go on to the neighbor state.
The European dimension is something that when you say it, it can sound very abstract, but in essence it is literally just the values that we stand for. The values of promoting cultural diversity, of promoting identity, of the richness of Europe. So these are the values that European Heritage Days truly represent. It is not only 70,000 events that we have every year, it is 70,000 stories that we represent, and for me this is the European dimension of the program.
It's about equality. It's about sharing, it's about remembering, it's about figuring out what we will do in the future together.
I think this is what happens. You start in the local and you try to bring people there, and then you can help them get the wider values in their view. I think it can bring out that we're all part of this Europe. Maybe, of course, on the one hand you say, well, that's clear. Of course we're all part. But on the other hand, how can you make sure of it? How can you feel it?
All of us belong to Europe, though we have quite different cultures. But we live together, and we should know how much we are hanging on each other's, you know. As I feel nowadays, all of the countries organize their events, and there are not too many contacts between the countries. The border is something like the end of the world, you know, and it is a very good idea to change a little bit.
In terms of organizing European Heritage Days in Russia, we think that European Heritage Days is a good possibility to transmit cultural values of Europe to the Russian citizens, and at the same time to share our cultural values with the Europeans. Russia is, so to say, situated in the intersection of Europe and Asia. So for us, it's European Heritage Days is a good platform for intercultural communication between different regions.
The area we live here has been the so-called Iron Curtain for about 50 years, more than 50 years after the Second World War. You couldn't go through, there was nothing, no communication. On the other hand, it was some kind of secure feeling, because we always said that the Russian bear, the bad Russian bear, is in the north, and he cannot come to the south because there is the border, there is the Iron Curtain. So it was some kind of feeling comfortable, because we have been the good ones and the other ones have been the bad ones. And now you see, you can't say it that way. It's the same in both directions. It's necessary to be aware of a certain community, but to see that borders may be necessary, but borders also can be a point where you don't let in new ideas. So I think the European dimension is that we abolish the borders which have been built because there had been some kind of history like we had in Austria, but nowadays the European Union, or the borders between, should be open, but also the borders between the European Union and the rest of the world should be open. We have to be aware that we maybe build some kind of fortress. In Austria we have the saying, the fortress Europe, maybe built because we have to be aware, we have to protect us against people, for instance, that coming from Africa, immigrants. So I think the European dimension is also a dimension which belongs to the whole world.
Europe has come about by, when you go back really through the ages, everybody has moved around. We're all, to my mind, everybody's a migrant. We've all come from somewhere. When you look at the names, our surnames, it's very interesting to see, you know, and sort of I think that's very sort of at a moment with all the theme of the refugees, we should actually put an emphasis on that one, that at some point we all came from somewhere else. We might have our roots here, but we're all, you know, we all have moved around, and I think that's very sort of important to bring that to the minds of people, that Europe as a point, you know, as it is today, wasn't like that, and we will just move forward, and that people bring, you know, having this mixture of different cultures or people, new people coming in, also bring something to our society, and that our society will evolve, and then, you know, it will again be different.
Well, the European dimension has been I think one of the most difficult issues during my work as a EHD coordinator, since heritage is usually thought of very local. So I think the common themes have widened the vision of the European dimension. So through the common themes, European themes, we have now realized the links to Europe in many local heritage.
The European dimension for me is to enhance what might be universal. Okay, if you deal with an issue that is really important, then it is also European, in my opinion. If it can touch you, if it's something that's important to you, that can appeal to you, then it becomes European, because we live in a community, and we share things, and this way it becomes European.
The way how we look on tangible heritage in a way is European. So, and also the way how we see our history and how we share our history, there are a lot of common themes, common ways, and of course, as Europe has been connected all the time, we have a lot of interventions, shared histories. For example, when you hear Latvia, you mostly, for example, don't think about connections with Czech Republic or France, but when you hear the stories of places, you know that there are stories that connect.
I think that good thing about EHDs is the involvement of local communities, and that is actually the European dimension in the program. Local communities are engaged in a way to allow them to present their heritage as something that is promoted on the European level. And I think that that is very important, coming from the fact that people locally are generally very proud about the heritage that is part in their communities, and now throughout this program they're getting the possibilities to present it as something that is important worldwide or Europe-wide.
A lifestyle in a village, in a small village in Romania, could put a could bring a solution to a problem in Ireland. So that network is very important, and communities play essential role in that, because as things get bigger, I think we lose authenticity. So basic community lives, and I think everyone is very proud of it, and with dignity they try to protect it, and that's the essence of diversity, which that Europe aspires for.
I'm most passionate about the communities and the people behind the events, and it's so lovely to see their enthusiasm and their love to their cultural environment and their love to their own community, and the willingness to like give some of their time to organize an event for the people that live in those surroundings. So I think that's for me like the most lovely to see their enthusiasm.
Well, it's always nice to see people, they don't like it, but we love it when you see people queuing up to see that one building. The people who do the guided talks, they are so, what I love about them is that they are so passionate to share their knowledge, and that people come out and they have been queuing and they've been sort of, and how long is it going to take? And then when after the visit they come and they're sort of radiant, and I think that's really wonderful to see that.
All the little surprises of people going somewhere, finding out something really different. This is what I really like. So it's not in the big events, in the big things, but it's when you discover something like a hidden heritage, or you discover people who are passionate about their heritage, and it's also a way to empower people to take action on their heritage. And we had some very good examples about the mining history, for example, where after the Heritage Days the people were inspired, so they pressed that their heritage would be recognized. So I think this is like a small victory for heritage. It's more than an event, it's more than a participation, but it's something that has further impact on heritage assessment, evaluation, recognition, and protection at the end.
What I was impressed by the most, I think, was the process itself of organizing the events. Because we were really organizing them with the local communities, and they happened all over Estonia, which is not a big country, but well, still we have some counties, and how people really were interested in the topics, and how they presented their own ideas, and how it was, how it wasn't like a top-down event, but like a community event that everybody enjoyed. And I think that that made this. Well, this is what I remember most of this year's Heritage Days.
For example, European Heritage Days event can be guided tour, but it can also be theater, it can also be a concert, that there are so many ways to interpret things. For example, this year in Sunakste, people were celebrating first local song and dance festival, and so they gathered at the same place, some course, and they were kind of in a way reenacted the things that happened almost more than 100 years ago. Then we had a 100th anniversary of some First World War battles, and again it was like tour. It's like a photo orienteering game, so it's again completely different format, but it still gives you opportunity to So I guess it's a freedom of format and the creativity of event organizers.
European Heritage Days connect different parts of society with the same endeavour: to promote cultural diversity. Authorities from state to local cooperate with civil society, private sector, and thousands of volunteers. The visitors are encouraged to take an active role in safeguarding Europe's heritage for current and future generations alike.
Well, I think European Heritage Days actually can fulfill one of the most needed roles in today's society, which is learning through participation. And this is something that is very visible in every European Heritage Days events. People come to the site, they don't only learn about the site, they participate in the activities, and this is how they create a bond that lasts for life. And they take ownership of their heritage, and this is exactly what we need in Europe today.
It is not just about the buildings, or it is not just about the meeting the thing which are going to be destroyed anywhere in time, but it's mostly about we can take care about these things, and we can, prolong their life and prepare them for the next generation, so they can also share the values. And I think this is very important.
I think that preservation of heritage begins in our homes. When we decide to preserve some valuable object or story for our next generations, and I think that this decision you make is the most important. But how can you make a decision if you don't know that something is valuable? So I think the most important thing is to know heritage around us, in our neighborhoods, and so on.
During EHDs, people can visit cultural sites that at times are closed to the public. They can discover a hidden treasure in the city, so they can learn something about their city, their country. And for example, they can learn how their life intertwines with old painting, or for example with an archaeological find that came from a distant country. So they can discover something of themselves during these days.
I work as a cultural heritage manager, so it's really sort of in my benefit, I guess, to work on the European Heritage Days as well, because the more aware people are of heritage around them, old buildings, archaeological sites and so on, it makes my job easier protecting it. And so, this all, it's one thing, really.
I think that's the most common reaction, is that people say, do you know what, I didn't even realise that this was on my doorstep. So I think that's the main thing the visitors get from Heritage Open Days in England, is that that their local areas are rich with stories and rich with heritage in ways that they didn't know were possible.
It's important to know about your heritage.
Heritage is something which really connects people.
We are not using heritage just to separate nations, but to bring them together.
It's interesting because it says something about your background and something about your identity and sense of belonging.
From archaeological sites to architecture, from medieval castles to folklore traditions and arts, Europe's cultural heritage lies at the very heart of the collective memory and identity of each European citizen. Learning and recognizing Europe's common history builds strong connections for the future.
If you take, for example, a school, a teacher could quite simply invite kids to ask their grandparents and where they came from. And you could very quickly see that every local community is actually a composite of several European influences and influences from European countries and history from European countries. So we think by sharing this in a daily context, the Heritage Days have a fantastic role to play in the year. And also the way countries are going to work together is also, represents very much the way we cooperate in Europe in a very open, respectful way, in a way which respects our values in a democratic and cohesive way, where everybody's voice counts, not only the voice of some people, but everybody's voice is valuable and taken into account.
Alors je crois que les Européens ont de tout temps vécu ensemble et que cela va continuer. Et ce qui est très intéressant, c'est de voir comment ce patrimoine a circulé dans les temps, comment ce patrimoine est partagé, comment ce patrimoine parfois est venu d'ailleurs, quelle est l'origine de ce patrimoine et comment cette évolution se situe dans un contexte historique. Et c'est cela qui est très riche et qui fait la richesse de l'Europe, je peux dire, cette grande diversité et l'intérêt des citoyens pour préserver cette richesse. Et bien entendu, vivre ensemble, c'est ce qui fait la beauté de l'Europe, mais également, je peux dire, du monde.
The role of heritage in addressing the societal challenges is very important. It's not an isolated, elitist entity, but we have to look at what can we do, how can we use our heritage and identity to ensure that everyone's dignity is acknowledged, and then it's also it takes its rightful place in societal life. So therefore, there are a lot of challenges that we're facing today regarding migration, extremism, populism. Heritage and identity can play an effective, constructive role in addressing these issues.
These are a little strange days for Europe, and on one hand, I'm happy that I lived during these days because they also present a challenge to all of us, a challenge to rethink why Europe, why do we want to be part of it, and why do we want to be European citizens and really believe in it and really wishing to be part of a wider community rather than our national country. And heritage can play a vast, a huge role in it. We can learn from what our ancestors did and the good things and the bad things that they did. And so heritage can play this educational role, we can say. But again, in order to be able to understand these lessons, we have to be ready to listen and talk and share our stories. So European Heritage Days can give this dimension, not only to celebrate the local heritage, but go beyond that and see it as part of a wider story, a part of European story, and learn from it. I hope this will be in the following years that we will see that.
The future is not written. We have problems in Europe. We have globalization. We have global problems like climate change and other. But we think we can succeed by bringing with us all these fundamental values of human rights, democracy, tolerance, and trying to solve our conflicts, because we shall have conflicts all the time. But so the future of Europe is a challenge for us, but hopefully I think it will be a peaceful and a prosperous one.